abundance as being the abundance of yourself. So instead of trying to be more anything or gain more anything, just ask yourself, how can I express more of myself right now? How can I be more me? And I found that when I do that, things usually work out a lot better.
Hello, everybody. I would like to welcome my latest guest on the Project Vitality podcast, Kyle Lipton. Kyle, whereabouts are you based in the world right now, and where are you from? Tell us a little bit about you. What led you to being a cosmic comedian?
So, to answer all of your questions, I am currently based in the capital city of Argentina, Buenos Aires. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, in the United States. I basically combine two worlds. So in one half of my world, I support people in transformation. I work as a psychic. I work as a mentor in the realm of transformation. I've been supporting people in that world in some way, shape, or form for almost a decade. And I like to tell jokes and also call out the shit that I see and make fun of it, because I think the world can be a bit too serious sometimes. And sometimes when we allow ourselves to see a more comedic perspective, it can really lighten the load. And yeah, we can all enlighten up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we were talking before we started that comedians have played an important part in human evolution throughout history, because generally comedians are the one that may speak up against dictatorships, or they'll speak up against things that the status quo is, they're thinking on the inside, but a little bit afraid to say because of judgment or consequences. And also, they can shift you from being so serious about life, because it is a big game and we did come here to have a good time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we did. And you know what I also find? I find that as a comedian, and if you look at other comedians, right, they can get away with things just from sort of a societal perspective, right? They can say certain things under the guise of being a comedian that maybe someone in a more serious profession, they might have more social consequences. And I think comedians, really good comedians, can sometimes skate the line between this is amazing and fuck you. And they kind of somewhere skate that middle line. And it really is an art, you know. You really you teeter a line, but you say the thing that everyone's thinking, but no one has the courage to say sometimes. And I find that people can find that cathartic, and just like an exhale that can enter a room when someone speaks to it.
Yep. And I guess the thing that I find with society is most people are quite uptight. There's a lot of people that are uptight. And from a health perspective, working with clients in health, that then leads to disease. If you're not laughing constantly at the world and constantly at yourself, then you are creating disease and distress in the body. And you can see so many people that they're on edge. Anything will kind of tick them over, because they haven't had a good belly laugh in a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you could see it, you know, it could be from someone who hasn't gotten laid in a long time to someone who hasn't laughed in a long time. There could be that almost stiffness, you know. And I'll give a real time example. I was chatting with one of my private clients yesterday, and her website crashed, and she was so freaked out about it. And she's like, "Well, this is my source of income. This is my source of money. And also, as a psychic, what I tuned into and what I shared with her, I was like, stop trying to figure it out. Just take a walk. And we laughed about it later because she thought the world was going to end, even though it just took 4 hours for her website to come back up. And so often, especially when we are in that uptightness, our view of the world becomes very narrow focused, right? It's about me, my big problems, how everything's going to fall apart if I don't get to where I need to go right now. And it's kind of hilarious how egocentric we can end up when we're in that stressed out state, which, as you said, it leads to disease, puts us in a real sympathetic nervous system state. we can't digest the world, our nutrients, our food properly. And yeah, it's a trippy thing, this life journey, eh?
And what I love about you is you're what I call an observational comedian, and so you've portrayed many a people. You've portrayed many a people. I have also been in my life, especially in my spiritual evolution. And that's what I think is so funny with spiritual evolution is there's many times you look back on yourself and you're, oh, that was cringeworthy.
Oh yeah, I have those moments with myself, man. I'll see those Facebook memories come up, and you look and you're like, oh, it's hard to watch.
Yeah. 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 Some posts that I was so passionate about or so certain on myself or so, I know everything type of posts. And you're just like,
Yeah,
oh God.
yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. So have you always been a comedian or you work with people transforming and helping them open up their psychic abilities? Is that correct?
No, I work as a psychic. I mean, yes, I have done that before, but I work with people from an entire range of different challenges that they may be facing in life, from relational to their business to, clarity that they're seeking in terms of their path or direction. So yeah, I help people in the realm. What I like to call it is it's a mix of a psychic reading and a transformational session. Right. Sometimes we use hypnosis. Sometimes it's a psychic reading. Sometimes I ask them questions. Usually it's a mix of different things. The most important thing, right? And this is the last piece that I'll touch on. So often people get so focused on, I find this hilarious, how you do it versus the end result. Right? If I tell someone, hey, I can help you with that, and they're like, but where did you start? Like, what did you do? And people get so hyper focused on the how that they miss out on actually just getting there. And I'm not discounting, education, or I'm not discounting, have integrity with your work and all of those things. But I've gotten to see such a wide variety of clients I remember in 2017, I had a client. This is probably one of the craziest stories. I had a client of mine who was in Saudi Arabia and was one of two wives and had problems, surrounding that topic. And I was like, well, I've never supported someone with this before, but here we go. And one thing that I've noticed is I've talked with humans from all walks of life, all different countries, but humans are humans in every single country I've ever engaged in.
Yeah, it's true. And I've always found it interesting with coaching because, some people definitely want step by step. And through my evolution and my life, I don't really remember sometimes how I got to somewhere. It's kind of just I trusted the process and then I was there. And so trying to reverse engineer it sometimes to people that want that step by step, it's kind of like, no, you've just got to, it's hard to explain them that you just got to open up to allow this part, which will then open up to allow this part. It's not just a very dogmatic.
Right. And I've found that humans can be so addicted, and I think we all have in moments, we can be so addicted to certainty, right? We want to know exactly how and the step by step by step. And I like to give it as a reflection. How excited would you be to have sex if you knew everything that was going to happen from start to finish before it even happened? You'd probably not be nearly half as excited, and you wouldn't enjoy it nearly as much, because part of the fun and part of the enjoyment, whether that's sex or whether that's you go on a hike, whether that is you jump in the ocean, is you don't know exactly what's going to happen or how it's going to happen, but you trust the process. And I love this quote by Terrence McKenna, where he says, this is how magic is done. I jumped into the abyss and I realized that it was just the bed of Feldus. And so often we're afraid of the unknown and we project all of these terrible ideas and circumstances when the whole time we're just sitting on our couch, safe. But we're so afraid of what could be that sometimes we don't risk what could be.
Yeah, and that's the problem so many people get stuck in is a lot of people think they have time, so they'll do it later when everything aligns. You know, when they've got enough money or they've got enough time or they've got whatever. When they reach that point that never comes for most people, that's when they'll make the changes that their heart desires. And you see these people get bitter, you know, over time. Their level of bitterness increases and their level of how much they laugh is decreasing at the kind of the exact same space, same time frame. And it's one of my favorite quotes is, I don't want to bugger this up. You don't grow old because you don't stop laughing because you grow old. You grow old because you stop laughing.
Stop laughing. Yeah, great quote, man. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and that's, you know, you see so much polarity in the world now because I'm right and you're wrong and blah, 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 blah. And a lot of the times it's like, maybe we're both wrong. Maybe we're both right. Maybe there's somewhere in between. But just because you have a different opinion or you live a different life doesn't mean we can't laugh together. And if we laugh together, you know, that's peace on earth, isn't it?
And to take it even a step deeper, what if no one's right and no one's wrong, but everyone's just doing the absolute best that they can, right? Because so often people live in this paradigm of right and wrong. Oh, I don't want to get it wrong. I'm like, well, you can't get it wrong, right? Imagine a child, you know, you have a newborn child. I don't know if you have kids, but you have a newborn child. They're 1, 2 years old and they start walking and they fall. When was the last time you ever heard a kid go, fuck, I guess I'm just not a walker? He's not cut out for this walk. Right? No, they just fall. They get back up. Maybe they poop themselves in their little diaper and then they keep it pushing. They keep it moving. And they're able to move so fluidly throughout the world because they're not constrained by this dogmatic sense of this is right, this is wrong. I have to get it right. And because in that, right, that's going to reflect in the physiology. It's going to reflect in the body. It's going to cause more stress to the nervous system. And you're going to live in a more hypervigilant kind of state. And one of the things that I noticed, just to piggyback on what you said about people becoming bitter and not laughing as much, I've noticed, or I'm noticing even right now more, how resistance to the unknown, resistance to jumping in and craving that certainty and security actually has people solidifying, in a sense, a more bitter worldview. The more they resist it, the more it's kind of solidifying this paradigm that they don't even want to live in, which is kind of the cosmic irony of humans. It's trick.
Yeah. And there's a two kind of, like, I guess, extreme polarities I see. The people that are so bitter that they closed off to that, the possibility that there's more than just the 9 to 5 and, you know, just paying your taxes and living, and, you know, they laugh at people that talk about spirituality or different things like that. And then you've got the other extreme, which you take the piss out of a lot, which is just people that, you know, are so spiritual, their identity is spiritual, and everything they talk about is so cosmically hilarious that they don't even make sense a lot of the time. Like when you're talking,
For sure. I mean, I've had to have conversations with people and be like, what are you talking? Like, what are you actually talking about? Right? They're saying so much without saying anything.
Good.
And I'll be sitting there like, you could have just said this, and this, and I would have got it. And I've found that sometimes what I've noticed is that some of the wisest people know how to distill the most complex subjects simply. Right? If you look at someone, I haven't dove into his work in quite some time, but someone like Paul Chek, you know, who's a health practitioner. I think you studied under him.
Yeah. I'm a Czech practitioner.
Yeah. So he knows how to explain things really simply.
Yeah.
Right? You eat, you move, and you be healthy. Right? Under the umbrella of that, there's topics you'll dive into, but so often someone will go, and this is why I love what I do, because when someone comes into a session with me, I can guarantee you it'll be grounded down to earth, but also cosmic and deep and profound. but I would not have someone, I would not feel an integrity with someone paying me to show up for a session. And I just go, Archangel Michael loves you. That's it. You have a nice day.
He told me that you should pay me 555 for this session.
Let's just breathe together here just for a moment. Yeah, you're feeling the shift now, right? No, that I couldn't do that.
Yeah, and that, you know, it is actually one of the things that does frustrate me a little bit when people are kind of taking the piss with their clients. Like, oh, you know, they'll just 11 for a 1 second session with me. And you're like, does that person really get value from you just, you know, putting your prices up or charging and not actually delivering anything, really? You're just kind of breathing deeply and kind of just making funny noises.
Yeah,
And
I've never paid for a session like that, so I don't assess it as to whether it's effective or not.
well, you know, there's a lot that I guess what I see is a lot of people that are, I guess, opened up their kind of higher senses are very, very ungrounded. And they haven't, and this is what Paul Chek talks about in the Chek Institute. It's about physically looking after this vessel, because that actually, without this, you actually can't go very far cosmically.
Yeah.
And you do see it a lot where spiritual people don't really look after their bodies, and they are very much super kind of loose cannons. And then you kind of get the grounded people that aren't spiritual that kind of look at them and go, fuck, I don't want to open up my spirituality if I'm going to end up like this.
Right. Right. And then the spiritual people look at the other people like, I don't want to ground myself and do a 9 to 5 if I'm as bitter and as stiff as you.
Yeah. And, you know, that is the cosmic joke. So how do you as a comedian, and how do you as someone with psychic abilities, and I think this is important to talk about because a lot of men really do suppress those psychic abilities. And people are starting to open up to it. But I would say that for men, a lot of, because it's uncomfortable, you know, you're supposed to be in this world the provider, the protector, and there is a little bit of, I guess, vulnerability of if you are to open up those parts of yourself to go into the unknown. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey with that? Have you always just been open, or did you shut yourself off for a little bit?
That's an interesting question. I don't think I've ever heard someone have a take on I've never that's a really interesting topic. All right. Let me sit in this for a moment because I want to give you the best answer that I have. So in 2016, I had a mentor of mine, named Preston Smiles, actually. He works in he does workshops in Australia at US.
I've done bridge and extreme.
Yeah, cool. One of the things that he shared with me back when I was kind of starting out was practice trusting your first thought. And I remember I was with a friend of mine in Los Angeles, and I saw this vision of my friend's soul being strangled, just like a vision and I was just like, all right, I'm just going to tell it to him. And I remember telling it to him, and he looked like he had seen a ghost and was like, dude, I've been having trouble expressing myself and all of these things. And from that day, that was one moment that really solidified, okay, continue to trust this. And there was a bit of a coming out of the spiritual closet process. You know, in 2020 is when I popped on my first live stream to do some psychic readings, which that is real time trusting the unknown because you're live. People type in questions, you give answers. And if you give an answer that, you know, someone doesn't resonate with, they might just go, you're full of shit. Yeah. And I remember the first live stream I ever did, I think I booked 2 clients straight from the live stream who did a session with me. And it was just such an affirming moment because the feedback that I was getting in real time was, you know, people resonating with what it was that I was sharing. And I found that you have to have the courage to be wrong if you want to actually deliver information. Otherwise, you're going to end up in this fearful state of, I don't want to fuck it up. I don't want to say the wrong thing. What if they hate me? It's not a good look, right? It's like if you're on a date, right? You're not going to be able to have a great day with a woman or, whatever you're into if you are planning everything, if everything's just canned, right? You're trying to figure things out. You're trying to figure, you can't plan what to say on a date because what if she changes the topic that it doesn't fit within the small frame of what you've planned, right? It's not going to work. So one of the things that I've noticed is that the more that I trust myself, it actually it helps you as a man, right? Because how can you lead if you're not willing to trust the unknown?
Good work. Good point.
If you and I were in a burning building right now, are we going to trust the men who are running around going, "Oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go." Or if we see a guy or one of us goes, "Just follow me. I'll get us out of here." Just as fucking clueless as everyone else, but that man has more certainty and more trust in the unknown and in himself. People are going to follow that guy.
Yeah.
Right. And I've found that the more psychic you are, the more you can actually lead as a man and in your relationships as well. Right. There have been many moments in relationship where I could feel like, even if it's a tiny little frequency of misalignment or something that feels off, and then having the courage to speak to that and trust in the unknown, you can up-level your intimacy and relationships, and you can lead you and the person you're with to a greater level of trust, intimacy, alignment, because as a man, you're clued into that, which also as a man, it helps you be clued into the emotional world of your partner, which is really important because some men just go, "Well, fuck it. I'm just going to work, drink beer, hang out, and, have sex with my wife every couple of days to make sure she's happy and take the family on the vacation twice a year."
Yeah.
In that world, there's, very kind of stereotypical family man.
Yeah. And then they wonder why the marriage breaks down or the relationship shit. And, you see this so often. And there's a big shift in the way relationships work. But I really like it how you put that. Like you actually become more manly when you open up and trust yourself. And I think that's one of the things that may scare a lot of men is that you might become too feminine or you might become too ungrounded. But it's like when people say most people only use 5% of their brain capacity.
That's
All
right.
right. So if you use 10% of your brain capacity, which is the unknown,
Yes.
does that make you less of a man? No, it means you're using more of the parts of you that exist
Right.
to lead and to be the best version of yourself. If you have a skill and you have something that you can access, like why wouldn't you? It doesn't make any sense.
100%. If you train, your upper body, but you don't train your legs or your glutes because you think that's too feminine, you're going to be unbalanced. And people only have the capacity to trust you to the degree that you trust yourself. And I think we're all psychic. I know we're all psychic because everyone has an experience in their life when they just felt something was off, or they met someone and they couldn't quite speak to it because they couldn't quite understand it, but something didn't feel right. And so often as a society, we discount that. And this is why I love to tell my clients is that nothing comes out of left field, right? If you look at why someone's relationship broke down, and we could trace this back to the body, we could trace this back to so many things. If you look at why someone's relationship broke down and suddenly that person cheated or suddenly, they ended the relationship, I guarantee you, if we trace back, we rewind everything that happened before that moment, we could both dissect all of the misalignments that came up, right? There is no out of left field in consciousness. And the more transparent you are and the more tuned in you are, the more actually you can, there's a Native American proverb which goes, listen to the whispers before you have to hear the screams. And so often in health, right, we don't listen to those little whispers that say, hey, maybe you should, cut out the excess sugars. Maybe you should take a few days and fast, whatever the case might be. And we end up having those consequences later down the line, seemingly out of left field. But the more clued in we are and the more sensitive we are to the moments, the easier it is to not have to be in those moments all the time.
Yeah. One of my mentors, the saying is first comes the feather, then
the rock,
then the brick, then the truck.
truck.
And sometimes I feel like I've even ignored the truck, and then the asteroids hit, It's no secret that doTerra has had a huge positive impact on my life, specifically around my mental health and my immune system. I've been doing this business now for 10 years, and I can ship these products to anyone, anywhere in the world within 7 days. So if you're needing a good night's sleep, reducing your stress, if you're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, need some immune support, digestive support, metabolic health support, pretty much anything I can think of, these oils and doTerra product range can support you. Now, I've created a landing page. It's thathealthdude.com/doTerra, or you can also reach out to me in your DMs and I can make a custom package specifically for your needs. There's two ways. Either become a customer, that's 90% of my business, or if you've got a wellness brand and a business, you can use doTerra and me, the perks are you get me, as a fulfillment partner to really support and enhance the vitality of your customer base. Just go to thathealthdude.com/doTerra or send me a message in any of my social platforms in a DM. What I see in human evolution is that for us as a species to go to that next place, or even as an individual to survive the shift, whatever you want to call it, you're not going to be able to deny those gifts that you have anymore.
100%.
It's going to be a crucial part of pretty much survival, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. And your professional opinion, what is it?
Same. Personal and professional, they're the same thing. It's just one of those sayings that, hey, my personal opinion, because sometimes you don't want to, you want to relate at a different level to Ben.
I'm just messing around.
Oh yeah, no, I know you're messing. That's why I wanted to get you on. So some of your characters that you portray as a cosmic comedian, who's your favorite one?
I can't say I have a favorite one. I think that they're all. Man, there's one that I played. It was a woman, and it was called Yoni Lightworker.
And
She's kind of like the stereotypical, eccentric, hippie, really just out there expressed spiritual woman. And man, I've been in this world in some way, shape, or form since I was about the last 10 years or so. And I have been to ayahuasca ceremonies. I have been to Tony Robbins events. I have been to Kundalini, polarity, breath, all these kinds of things. And you get to see there are certain archetypes that just, no matter where I've been to Bali, I've been to the Sacred Valley in Peru, you see these little hubs and pockets where it's a trip. But I've also been, I've been vegan. I've been, super spiritual. I've dosed mushrooms. I've tried a whole bunch of things, and part of it is also I can see myself in a lot of characters that I've showed up as, right? So it's not just me on a kind of putting myself on a pet. Like I couldn't have gotten these insights had I not either been similar to this in some way, shape, or form, or seeing people like this. And once again, sometimes, as we were just chatting about, we have to look back on older versions of ourselves and cringe a little bit and go, okay, but I needed to be that version of me to take me here.
Yeah, that's why I find this stuff so hilarious is, there was one time that when I first, I guess, had my, biggest spiritual awakening, and I lived in Surfers Paradise. So I was working in Surfers Paradise for the club crawl. So my job was drinking, partying, sales. And I remember I decided to grow my hair long. I started walking around with no shoes, and I had a t-shirt that had like some type of spiritual word. I don't even know what it was, but just like, some different language symbol.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost something like that. And I just walk around almost like preaching the word of God.
Right.
But I looked like just some crazy ass homeless dude with no shoes on and cruising around.
Right.
And I was wondering why people weren't taking me serious.
Right.
And it's because I was, just this version of spirituality and with the mala beads and the purple, and or sometimes you've got to be all white if you want to be spiritual.
Yeah.
And I just love those different, the archetypes and the different levels of progression that we go along, because that's why it is so cringeworthy when you look at yourself, and maybe in 5 years I'll look at myself now and go, oh, who knows?
For sure. I mean, yeah, I've seen just such bizarre. I saw a woman the other day who, and I don't know this woman personally, but she was like a channeler, and she was talking about how tomatoes and potatoes are dulling down your vibration or something of that sort. And like you need to avoid those foods, and they stay in your vibrational field or some shit for like 7 years. I think the very next day I ate both tomatoes and potatoes. And it's just you see just some of this outlandish, just completely off the reservation type shit. And I'm like, if you're giving your God-given divine power to nightshades, and that is where you're losing your shit from, and you're screwed for the next 7 years. Like, with that mentality alone, you're cooked.
Yeah. You go to a family dinner and someone's put on potatoes, and you have it, and then you're like, oh well, there's my spiritual journey gone for the next 7 years.
Right. I'm gonna have to do a few ayahuasca ceremonies just to clear it all out.
That's funny. You know what's also funny is I personally don't eat nightshades.
Yeah, and that's fair.
But I don't eat them often, but I do eat them, and I'm not going to go to that outlandish belief system that it's going to ruin my growth and evolution for 7 years, because that's it's nonsense.
Yeah. No,
Do you want a chip? Do you want a chip? Nah. And then you have it. Oh no.
right, you're gonna have to repent for your sins. Or I guess some people were those, you have to be like, oh, if you're not vegan, you're not going to be able to be a pure channel. And I was vegan for a little bit. Didn't work great for me. I got kind of skinny fat. Granted, I didn't do vegan perfectly, and nor do I desire to right now in this season. But there's been times in my life where, I've been on a completely carnivore beef, bacon, butter, and eggs, and did psychic readings. And guess what? I didn't have anyone say the vibration of bacon fucked up the session, and I need my money back. Right? And
Whoa. It's actually really interesting. I was reading a book that had a whole bunch of Steiner quotes back in from the day. And it was actually talking about that the food quality is so poor in grains and things like that you actually need meat to be more spiritual and more grounded, because the nutrient. And this is 100 years ago. This is before GMO and before all the other.
Yeah.
And the truth is that a lot of the foods that we do eat are not food anymore, and that's why so many people are sick. But the thing is, the more in tune you are with your body, you'll listen to your body, and you won't get stuck in those dogmatic belief systems. I was plant-based for a little bit as well. It made me highly emotional. Like, I was not grounded. I was not happy. And, in the books, in the textbooks that are funded by, people that have vested interest in that, I was doing what was right. And then, what was it? I remember looking at, it was like a vegan cheese or something. I think it was called cheese. And I bloody looked at it, and I looked at the ingredients, and I was like, this is pretty much 80% canola oil. Like, I am not eating this shit. And then I just started, I was like, how did this even make it into the fridge? Get it out. Let's get some real food back into me. And, that is one of the, I guess, the processes or the funny things on that spiritual journey. You will go into one of those dogmatic beliefs. Like, now I'm a vegan. I am highly more spiritual than you.
Right. Yeah, I've seen such, that's one of the things that I think has to be looked at and have some level of consciousness around if you really want to. Just notice where we're very righteous.
Yeah.
Right. I am a vegan. I love the quote that Paul Chek shared actually, which is, don't take advice from someone who can't teach with their shirt off.
Yeah.
And I think that's, there's people that have six packs that still are not healthy, but I just remember, and you see the most ridiculous things on Instagram, man. I really want to taper down to how much time I spend on there. There's a guy who I think he just eats raw fruit, and he's so righteous about it. Just like, this is the way. And you see him, and he looks like a guy who just eats fruit. He's got like no muscle mass.
Yeah.
Very skinny. He's like, I'm able to exercise as he's shoulder pressing like 2-kilogram dumbbells. And there's no part of me that wants to model after that. But once again, it's just being aware of who you want to take advice from. And also, are they able to balance those two things, right? If you get someone who's all yin, no yang, they're going to be all over the place, maybe. If you get someone who's all yang, no yin, they're probably not going to be that present of a human being because they're just so fixated on where they need to go. And to me, like, being able to bridge heaven and earth is being able to access both of those energies, right? That's why when we're more connected to our intuition as men, especially, and as women, right? Not that I'm a woman, I don't know. I don't actually have no clue. So I'll speak for myself. As men, the more we're able to be connected to that, the more effectively we can lead because we actually are connected to ourselves. We trust ourselves. It's easier to lead ourselves and to effectively be a better leader.
Yeah. And I love how you talk about when we put ourselves up on that pedestal, we become righteous. And that's why I've always loved Paul as a mentor, because he's always said, never believe a word I say.
Yeah.
And so, he's putting all this wisdom out there, but he's also saying, just don't believe anything I say. Go test it for yourself. And
for sure,
when you are this person that's like, my way is the way, you're full of shit. And you're just so full of shit that you don't realize you're full of shit. And then what you'll do is you'll gather a few people around you that like worship you, and anyone else that doesn't believe your way, you'll push aside, and so you'll have your few followers that you're a god, and then you create this complete false identity of just nonsense. You live your life like that until it comes crashing down.
The blind leading the blind.
Yeah. And that's why I've always been a big fan of keeping friends in all areas of life.
Mm-hmm.
Not just surrounding myself with Yoni Lightwork. Yeah. I've got my Christian friends, and I've got my my farmers that my spiritual people, my Czech practitioners, all these different people.
Yeah.
People I surf with. And all these people, and everyone's got such different perspectives, which gives you a bigger, more whole picture.
I so agree with you. And, if you're, I can speak from the United States terms. If you're a Republican and you can't sit with a Democrat and love them, you missed the plot. If you're a vegan and you can't love a meat eater, you missed the plot. If you're a meat eater and you can't love a vegan, you missed the plot. And this is where righteousness actually blocks the flow of love, And what I've noticed is that spirituality it's a way of life. It's right. You could go to a nightclub and have a spiritual experience, right? You could feel the part of you that's afraid to start a conversation with a woman at a bar, right? And you can go, oh, wow, this probably shows up in other areas of my life. Let me feel this fear. Let me actually move through it, build confidence. Ooh, I'm afraid to hit the live button on my Instagram. Ooh, I note it, right? We don't always need to be doing it. Life will show us. I love this quote by a guy called Peter Crone, where he says, life will reveal to us the people, places, and circumstances to reveal to us where we're not free. Yeah. Some version of that quote. I think I butchered it a little bit, but if you just live your life, you're going to see the shit that is your prison. Right? Where you're being a dick on the road, where you want to cut someone off because you're more important than them, or where you think everyone's out to get you. If you're conscious enough or aware enough, you'll notice these little projections. And if you're hip to it, if you're privy to it, you can just be aware, right? Because if you're meditating all the time, but you're then just a dick right after you get out of the meditation, right? There's things to do. And what I've noticed is, as someone who's identified as an overthinker at times, there's meditating, which I love, and I think it can really help people quiet the mind. But then it's also on a deeper level, realizing that the default state of our mind is one of quietness, right? So how can we live more in that default state of quietness, of presence? Because we're naturally present human beings. And then it's just literally looking at what are the things that are obstructing presence from naturally coming through.
And we're also naturally spiritual. It's not, it's just like, that's what we are.
Yes. Yeah. Just because you put mala beads on doesn't make you more spiritual, right? You could be on a high horse and you can be, a dick to someone with mala beads on. Now what significance do the mala beads hold? I'm still here. I'm just going to grab my charger because I don't want my phone to die.
Yeah, no worries. We would have edited it out.
We're back.
Yeah, and so that's one of the, I guess, the most interesting things is when we either say we're not spiritual or we believe we are ultra spiritual, like JP Sears talks about.
Yes.
The truth is we're neither or. We are just spiritual beings, and we are having a human experience, and we can try to deny it or we can try to overemphasize it just so everyone knows. It's like the vegan. They always have to tell you. It's a spiritual person will tell you with their long gazes or their overemphasized deep breaths or their really quiet
with a long hug. Yeah, all of it. I'm so you're like, but that's the right. You're like, I don't know if I really want to hug you right now. But this is one of the things that I love, and this is actually, funnily enough, came to me while I was on the beach in a mushroom journey, and I remember my intention in this mushroom journey was I want to feel and know the truth of who I really am. It was a really deep, journey, and one of the things that came through was that I'm here to reveal the cosmic joke. Now, what's the cosmic joke? The cosmic joke is the ways as humans in which our ego literally has an idea of how to get somewhere, but it only creates the opposite. So I'll give you an example to make it more grounded, which would look like if I hold myself that I'm more spiritual than someone else, what's the effect of that? It actually, if you want to put it in this term, it actually makes you less spiritual because you're disconnected in that moment from love. You're not even seeing from the eyes of love, even though your ego is like propped up on this I'm better than you pedestal, disguised as no, you're below me and I must, right? You've already missed the plot, which is how the ego likes to hide. Fighting for peace, right? You can't fight for peace because you're in the vibration of fighting.
Yeah.
It's a trip.
And it's the, whenever you do these things, so for example, you're trying to be more spiritual, what you're actually doing is you're disconnecting yourself from other humans so that you don't have to feel vulnerable and you don't have to feel love.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's holding a bit of a barrier. Some people hold it with weight. Some people hold it with I'm more spiritual. Some people, I'm an important business person, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And we all do it. And that's why I find it so funny, because I catch myself doing this shit all the time.
Yeah,
I'm trained not, I've done all this study to not do it, and I still do it daily. And that's why it is so hilarious when you do it. I love my favorite one of the moments. Everyone else is a narcissist except for, you. It's
such a good one. Such a good one. And that's the one that I've unpacked before. It's like you get the narcissist and the empath.
Yeah.
Right. And someone will be like, well, if it wasn't for my narcissistic ex, then I'd be, killing it in life. You know what I had to do? I had an ex one time, and I felt manipulated. I felt gaslit. I felt all of these things. And I remember going up to Google and searching, what are the symptoms of gaslighting? And there's 15 bullet points on this Google page. Now, I could have just went, fuck you, this, you're a terrible person, you need to heal yourself, right? But at some level in that paradigm, I'm the victim. Oh, poor me. But you know what I did instead? After, having my little human tantrum and all those things, which, you can do. I had to look at myself and go, where was I doing all 15 of those things to myself?
Yep.
Right? Where was I gaslighting and manipulating myself? And what I realized is that I can only be gaslit and manipulated to the degree that I'm already doing it to myself. Right? So I can only believe something that I've already manipulated myself into believing. Right? So then turning the flashlight back on me and going, okay, I'm responsible here. Right? And by doing that, I took my power back and I was able to use that relationship as a way to evolve and come deeper into my own power. And so often we get caught in this blaming of it's you, it's this, but we miss the plot, which is, okay, but what's this trying to teach me about myself? How can I use this as a way to come home to myself? And if we look at the balances, the narcissist usually needs to connect deeper with their sensitivity, right? And learn to feel the depths of other people more and be connected to them. Where on the other hand, the empath usually needs boundaries, usually needs to, step into their power. If you're a man, some might use the phrase, you might need to grow a pair and, speak up, have boundaries, step more into your power, right? Both of them are giving them an opportunity to grow, right? But if we get too caught up in the victim and the label, we miss the opportunity to grow in that moment.
Yeah. And the way I look at, kind of that empathetic, narcissistic conversation is that, the person that has more narcissistic tendencies has to realize that there's other people in the world, not just them. Yeah. And then the empath has to realize that they're not, yes, they are the stars and the moon and they're the cosmos, but they're also an individual person that has feelings and wants and needs. And you've just got to express them more or be more clear on them. And that's where the boundaries start to come in. Yes. The narcissist is a perfect person for that because they're like, that's the cosmic joke is they will push those boundaries, in you so that you can experience that. And without that, you wouldn't have even known that there was a boundary there.
Right, exactly. And what is, sometimes we don't know what our boundaries are until we feel them crossed. Right? When we feel them crossed, we might go, ooh, that shit is not, I don't like that at all. All right, let me speak up about it. And that's, the other kind of funny thing that you see in that dynamic where the person gaslights themselves into having no boundaries because that's the spiritual thing to do. When the spiritual thing to do in that moment might be just saying, hey, no more of this. This doesn't work for me anymore.
Yeah.
But under the spiritual lens of, I just need to accept everything and everyone. Yeah. Imagine a hotel where if you told them, you walk into the lobby of this 5-star hotel and you say, hey, where's the bathroom? And they point over to the lobby, take 5 steps to the right. It'll be on your left-hand side. And they go, you know what? I'm actually just going to pull down my pants and just take a shit right here in front of reception. Right? That's not going to happen. Why? Because there has to be a certain set of rules, a certain set of boundaries and guidelines of what it means to be in relationship with you. Because if everything just flies, there'll be chaos, right? Out of chaos comes order. And if everyone's just taking a shit, it's in the reception of the hotel, it's going to go very quickly down to a 2-star hotel just by the smell alone.
Well, you see that in, LA, that's, we do what you want. All right, we will. Oh, shit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen homeless people with a 2-story tent and an iPad, and you're just like, this is what a life.
Beachfront property. And the thing is that is one of the kind of major components of that. I would say one of the downfalls of the spiritual path is that people get so weak on boundaries that they can be manipulated by any guru, any course, anything that's offered to them because they don't see the greatness in themselves So they'll pedestal you, they'll pedestal me, and they won't actually know who they are. And until they've, done 10 different light worker courses and they've got nothing out of it, then they go, you know what? Maybe I will find someone that's a little bit more grounded. Or maybe I will ask, okay, so what am I actually paying for? Like, what do I get? Well, you get a Yoni light worker certificate saying, you've had
Yeah.
Lighthouse is my signature 6 or 12-month one-on-one mentorship program. It's pretty much where I've gathered all my life experience as studying with the Czech Institute for 15 years, my intuitive gifts, my personal challenges, which I do not wish upon anybody, and to fast track you to where you want to go. And my approach is very simple. One, it's all about vitality and life force. Change takes a truck ton of energy, so you need that vitality and life force to ground you so that you're resilient when blockages come up, and they will. Two, we've got to get you clear, get that clarity on where you're going, because once you've got that little bit of life force back, you can start to dream bigger, that biggest vision for your life. And then three, it's all about confidence. Now, as a lighthouse, you may have weathered many a storm. You may feel battered, you may feel broken, you may feel defeated. But as we rebuild your confidence, you start to shine bright, and it helps to guide others home because they see that beacon of hope, that brightness of you sharing your truth, sharing the essence of who you are. And the truth is, the world really needs a lot of lighthouses right now because people are stuck, people are overwhelmed, and we need your brilliance, that light within inside you, to be shining so bright that people can spot you from a bloody mile away. Now, all you got to do is head on over to thathealthdude.com/lighthouse or send me a DM on any of my socials and we can chat and see if it works. I take on a few clients every year and let's see if we can make some magic happen.
So there's two sides to this though too, right? When you get into these extremes, you get the people who do every single light worker course that exists, and that's the healing journey. But then you get the other people, and I've been this person specifically, where they go, well, all the answers are inside of me. Right. So I don't need anyone. I don't need anything. I'm good. Right. It's me, which once again can be another flavor of the spiritual ego. Right. Because if I were to take that same dynamic and go, well, if everything's inside of you, the people outside of you are also a part of you. Right. So you're just learning from another part of yourself that exists inside of you. And I remember I had to eat humble pie when a mentor who really fucking changed my life, our conversation literally started with me being like, I'm good. I have everything I need inside of me. And I was humbled so fucking fast that in that day changed. I learned something that day, which was so powerful, which was the fear of the unknown was actually just a fear of myself. And that there is if we're all one, I'm not actually afraid of the unknown. I'm afraid of myself. Because I am the unknown. And had I just been living I have everything I need, thank you, but I'm good. Which is like just kind of that spiritual, what is it? Conflation, inflation. And then the other side would be spiritual deflation, which is, I don't know shit, I'm terrible. I'm so broken. Let me just do every course that exists. Both of them are still two different sides of the coin of the ego.
Well, they're both not being present.
Right.
That's we have a coin with the Czech Institute, which is pour me on the victim, and then you flip the coin over and you look at the other side. But then you can also stand the coin up, and so now it's not left. It's not yin or yang. It's kind of this in between space as well. And when you're physically, tangibly looking at the coin, it's got a yin and yang symbol on it, and then you stand it up. It kind of that space in between both sides can sometimes open up. I didn't think of it that way. And there's one really good quote it's not a quote, but a story of the person that's on the island and they're stuck on the island and they're like, God, please help me. And then a ship comes past. They're like, oh, do you need any help? No. And then a plane comes past and be like, you need any help? No. It's like, God, why don't you help me? It's like, I sent a ship, I sent a plane.
Right.
What more do you want? And And this is the thing, is like you can get stuck in there. That mentor could be what God has sent you, or spirit, or whatever word you want to say.
Yes. Yes.
You just have to, but you can deny it and go, I'm right. Yeah, I know everything's all inside me. But at the same time, are you bullshitting yourself? Because if you're yearning for mentorship, if you're yearning for a new pathway, like, don't bullshit yourself. Don't create this story of, oh, it's all inside me. Yes, it is inside you, but you are connected to everything. And sometimes you need a reference point to trigger that out of you. Because if it's stuck in you and it's like, it's a classic, the classic alcoholic or the classic spiritual person. If all your friends are alcoholics and you're like, oh, I'm really not enjoying this anymore, you're not going to go to that circle of people around you for mentor advice, because they don't even realize they're alcoholics. You're going to have to reach outside, or somebody else will come into your pathway to show you something different. And what I find in the spiritual communities, or any community, and this is why that reference points of different perspective: conservative, democratic, vegan, carnivore, whatever, spiritual, unspiritual. You have to have those reference points, because some of the biggest lessons I've got, yes, there's been some incredible mentors in my life, like Paul and Preston is one of them, but also just references of different people. Some of the great mentors are people that do shit that I'm like, oh, thank God that person did that, because I'm never going to do that. Like, the way that you live your life has given me such a reference point of the way that I don't want to live my life.
Yeah.
Like, thank you for showing me that. And if I wasn't being aware of the lessons in, I breed miniature goats. They give me lessons every bloody day. I want you to go this way. No, I'm going that way. Like, when you're rushed, they're very good at it. And they know that I'm really important. I've got a really important thing to do right now. They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
They're going to show you your thing means nothing to them. They want their food, or they want to go this way, or they don't want to be hugged, whatever it is. That's just life.
Just running around trying to hug miniature goats and just.
I need it. You're feeling down. Come here. I'm feeling a bit down today. They'll be like, no. And then other times where you're like wanting peace, they'll be like right in your face. That's just the beauty of the animal world.
One of my a mentor of mine, his name's Orrin Harris. One of the things that he said that I really loved, he said, you become a force of nature when you stop forcing nature.
It's a good one.
Right? And, I think that's just such a great example of that. So often there's, I have to have it this way. You need to show up like this. People need, and we have such fragile worldviews, right? If I were to go to my family's house for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, and I were to start talking about the Donald Trump and there would be a freaking uproar in the house, right? Which shows to me how fragile some people's peace is, right? Because their peace is in the world. And I was sharing this with a client of mine recently who was so in this scarcity of, well, I'm a photographer, and this season I don't usually get a lot of clients and all of these things. And I had to remind her, but money doesn't come from the world. Money comes from being in alignment. Abundance comes from being in alignment, right? And if you really get it, it's not just some cheesy spiritual saying. It's where you rest your power in is also, it's so important, because so many people, they chalk it up as, I'm in scarcity because I believe that my money comes from people. But if you trust in your intuition, if you trust in your alignment, if you trust in your own spirit, you're always going to be taken care of. And I have tested that theory in ways that had scared the crap out of me. But what I've learned is, on the other side, whether that be taking a trip across the world with $60 in my bank account, no money coming in, just the pure intuition of my soul saying, take the trip, and seeing my bank account go up and up and up. Like, sometimes, at least in my own life experience, I've had to play in some extremes to really see how some of these principles are just so true. And that's why when someone comes to me, I'm not just going to recite to them a quote that I read in The Secret. I'm going to speak to them from an embodied experience, coming back to the whole quote of, you don't want a health teacher who can't teach in their underwear.
Yeah.
Right. If someone hasn't been the example of health, why are you learning from them? And it's like, it's not to say that we're not perfect. You know, we don't have to be perfect, but if you're not even close, I mean, shit.
Some of the health ministers across the world, and you're like,
Oh man, I think it's Belgium or Denmark. There's just this one lady who's just she's just obese, and her eyes are just like squinted because just how fat her face is, and it's
the level of denial in that person is. Imagine getting up and speaking about health, and thinking that you were the expert, and truly believing that you knew what you were talking about. And you know the thing you were talking about with Paul Check, with talking about being in your underwear or being able to teach with his shirt off. He talks about dietitian conventions. Well, he calls them obesity conventions because a lot of dietitian conventions are sponsored by McDonald's and all this type of, and all the speakers are really overweight. And Paul did this seminar and talked, and then the other professor was like, "Oh, everything you said is wrong and incorrect." And Paul like looked at him and says, well, in front of the stage, in front of the audience, "Well, I'm happy to take my shirt off in front of everyone. Are you?" And you know, like because he was more of a beast, and so we can get so stuck up in that we are right, and we can be so far bullshitting ourselves and so disconnected from any form of truth. And that's the world that we live in, that we can have someone who's a health minister who is clearly needs some support and some help in their health. And, you know, maybe in 10 years or 5 years when they've really worked on themselves, maybe they could be the health minister then.
Yeah. But yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the great quotes where it is, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. Mm-hmm. Right? We want to fight about how right we are, about how limited we are. Like, wow, best case scenario, you want a limitation. Congratulations. Right? And it's just, it's crazy.
And yeah, and these stories are, the reason that this is so important, that this topic is so important, is that the stories that we create make us miserable.
Yeah.
You know, they block us. There's a fly. And I think this same bloody fly was doing this yesterday as well when I was doing a podcast, just here to teach me a lesson. Thank you, fly. Gracious, you know.
Be present. Yeah.
Be present. But when we are disconnected from ourselves and when we don't open up to our opportunities of who we can be, you know, it does make us extremely miserable when we get stuck in that story. And from a health perspective, it leads to disease, so that disease can wake you up from your slumber. We call it the pain teacher as Czech practitioners, or when does it get so painful in your life, you know, that you've created a disease that you will then reflect in and stop bullshitting yourself in the stories that you've created.
Yeah. I mean, you could take that even, I've noticed, especially in the realm of like digestive issues and things like that. I'm not a Czech practitioner or anything, but maybe you could speak to this. What I've noticed in clients is sometimes when there's a digestive issue, it's usually because there's a part of them that they're not digesting, right? And sometimes like that part of them, that's their power, right? That's saying no more, because the solar plexus is really related to boundaries, personal power. And sometimes there's a part of us that we're afraid to digest because it feels vulnerable or scary. Or, you know, I remember I had, what was it? I had some digestive issues, and I had a session with someone in 45 minutes because I digested a new part of myself. All the rumbling in my stomach stopped.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal as to the power of the mind-body connection. And how if we're present, right? If you're just noticing like, oh, I've been, you know, feeling this pain in my stomach for the last 3 days, or this rumbling or indigestion, whatever it is. Let's get curious about it. Why is this happening? What's happening in my life right now as to why I'm experiencing this in this moment? And I found that, really valuable things can be learned if we're just willing to be present.
And that's the thing, is that disease just doesn't turn up. It's been whispering, to the point where it's now screaming at you to take notice of your body. And people go, "Oh, I don't know how it came." It's like, well, you've ignored your body for 20 years, 30 years. You've had this desire in your heart, or if you've given away your power and become the victim for 30 years, eventually the body will say enough's enough, and that will give you that point of reference to still you so that you can actually look in. The personal power is a big one. Like, you see that a lot in spiritual people, where they're extremely overweight because they don't want to feel fully. So they create that boundary. They don't want to step into their power because they're afraid of their power. So they just do that. And you see it so often in that spiritual world. You go around spiritual festivals and everyone's overweight. Or extremely skinny because they're.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what festivals I haven't been to to be fair, I don't go to a lot of spiritual festivals anyway, so I can't even attest. But,
I remember when my father passed away 4 years ago, I gained about, if you're in the US, 50 pounds. If you're in Australia or somewhere, probably about 22 kilos. And I lost about 22 kilos in about 3 months. And one of that came to diet, lifestyle, of this thing. But a biggest thing is I started to find my fulfillment again. Right? I started to feel lit up by my creativity. I started to go on adventures. And when you're living in that space, you're less likely to even want to reach for food. And so often, I was helping a client with this recently. She's so hyper fixated on I got to lose the weight, because I'm like, well, you're already being controlled by that number if it goes up or down. I'm saying if you actually just focus on your fulfillment, if you focus on the things that are lighting you up, the weight will shift as a as a symptom, right? But you're only just trying to correct that. At the very best, you're still controlled, right? Because if it goes up tomorrow because you're stressed out, you pucked up again, now you're going to be in this little hamster wheel. And I'm saying just be the version of you that's so lit up that naturally some of these habits autocorrect themselves.
Yeah, and a lot of the habits make themselves obsolete when you're clear on what you truly want.
100%.
You don't need that anymore to fill that void because you have something greater that's more aligned with your spirit, your higher self, whatever. Because of that, and it's just helping people to get to that space. And that's, I guess, you do that through your comedy and your coaching, and you use those drops, like it's just dropped in. You use that type of wisdom that you've got.
Yeah.
And that's I kind of got taught that the same thing. I got taught just blah. That's what I got taught. Just blah. Whatever is the first voice that it comes,
Got it.
blah.
Yeah.
Just say it. And there's so many times when, I'm actually pretty good at it now. I just say it and, deal with the consequences. If people ask, yes, you got to be careful as a spiritual person to give unsolicited advice because.
Right. But that's the ironic part is it's not, if your intuition is telling you something about someone, but at the same time, it's also saying, don't tell them because it's not the moment, but you don't listen to that shows a lack of wisdom.
Yeah.
Or just look at how awesome right? It's like, do you even want to help the person or you just want to feel good about, how cool you are?
I had an ex once and I used to say, I didn't ask,
Yeah.
It's like, I don't need to be mentored at this exact way. You're not my mentor. I didn't ask.
I think I'm trying to remember if I had someone, it might have happened multiple times, but I think I might have even had someone like, are you open to some feedback? And I think I was like, no, I'm not. Right? Which is such a, like, almost it pops someone out of a matrix where they're like, well, everyone's open. What do you mean you're not open for feedback?
Yeah.
Or I had someone the other day, and God bless her, she's such a great person, but she was like,
I see you on this timeline, and I'm not sure if this is the highest timeline for you. And I just responded, and I said something like, "You don't get to tell me what timeline I'm on." Right? And she was
He's online police, so
right. And but she was very appreciative. She was like, "Thanks for calling me out on that."
Yeah. I love this spiritual calling out where it's, oh no, namaste. It's that type of.
Hey, namaste. Wait for me.
All right. So your socials, like, how do people contact you? What are you offering? Let's put it in. I'll put everything in the show notes.
Okay.
But give a couple of words, some final words of wisdom, some final downloads, a joke, whatever you feel like giving, and also direct people on how they can find you.
Yeah. The only thing that I really feel to share right now is spirituality could be summed up as be in this world, but not of this world. And if you're present and aware, you can find opportunities for growth and expansion in and out of spiritual events, courses, or like if you're just present in your life with a pure heart and a good intention to help people and serve people and be in integrity, and realizing that if you're feeling scarcity in any way, shape, or form, I just want to share this. I feel it's important. Is that, and a friend of mine gave me this download years back. You feel like someone who has been given a vision, but you've been afraid, or you just been wanting some support stepping into that. I have done some programs like that, and I may be doing more come this new year, but that's still pending.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for coming on. I think, for those of you that want a bit of a laugh and to taking themselves too serious, I'd highly recommend jumping on Kyle's Instagram, because there will be some characters that you have been, or you have definitely met, and the cringeworthy part of it, that's what I love about it. It kind of reminds me of Ricky Gervais from The Office, but in the spiritual, the spiritual version, where that person is so cringeworthy as a character that you actually create a bond with them.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. You're like, I feel sorry for you, Yoni Lightworker, but, I really, really admire, you putting yourself out there and having a go.
Yeah. The show must go on.
Awesome, mate. Well, thank you very much for your time. And I will share all the links and everything in the show notes. And I'll talk to you soon. Cheers, mate.
Hey, brother. Thank you very much. Cheers.